Hello everyone. It's Sharkwolf1234 here, otherwise known as Rocket Raccoon fan and being big Ben Grimm fan. So, hey guys, today I wanted to talk about, well, obviously the title, but Fantastic Four First Steps. It was a really good movie. If you've seen the video, Keys in the Cooler, I rated a 4.5 out of 5 keys. But today we are going to talk about that half a key a little bit more to expand on what I was saying about Ben Grimm having one-dimensional character development. So, if you've watched the movie, spoilers for this video. Ben Grimm is supposed to have a love interest in the movie, which seems good at first because you want to humanize him more, but there's three big problems. One, he doesn't get a lot of screen time in the first place. He feels like a background character, and everything he does is with the team. Like, yes, he piloted a ship in a black hole. While it is impressive, it's not a Ben moment. Like, he doesn't get to do it on his own. He, like, Reed is just like, trust me and blah blah blah, and just I wanted something that only Ben could do in particular. Like, I would have been more interested, like, if, like, the scene was a little bit more focused on Ben piloting the ship and using his pilot skills more appropriately than having everyone like so focused on Sue's pregnancy, because we know she's giving birth, but we don't need to see every single thing she's doing. And I think the scene should have been more focused on the guy who's obviously like smart with being more than a superhero, and he's obviously trying to not have him die. So credit is where credit is due, and yet the movie is like, Ben avoided your death, and congrats. So yeah, I was a little disappointed the way it. I'll say this, but you'll see what I'm talking about. Is that the movie indirectly says that Ben Grimm is not part of the family. He is not part of the family, not yet. While you may think this could be like a crappy statement, think of it as like this. The movie has provided no reason to me whatsoever or overall of why he should save the Earth. Yes, because I'm a Ben Grimm expert with the lore and everything, the reason he saves the Earth, if you guys don't know or don't even know the Fantastic Four whatsoever, is because he is more connected to the people than anything. He is saving Earth mostly because of the people, not because of Franklin. Sure, he has a best friend, but in depth, it's really about the people of the reason why he's saving them. And the problem about this movie not giving him any screen time whatsoever is that it doesn't show that whatsoever. You can't really figure it out on your own if you haven't like watched any of the previous movies or read any comics. It's just very vague, and it doesn't really expand on Ben being a protector for the people. Like, yes, there is that moment in Yancey Street where he's going around and shows it's nice to see what he does with his off time, but in the end, I mean, anyone can do that, right? I mean, it has to be something explicitly shown that only Ben Grimm is doing. And with Sue speaking to the people, it takes away from that Ben is the people person. You could say, yes, Sue is a politician, but that's kind of something entirely different in our world. There's a difference between a politician speaking purely for business and a man who speaks for the people and the overall civilians, which he is that guy. He is a down to earth person that you can relate with, and he is your okay. He's your neighborhood Spider-Man, basically. Neighborhood thing. Neighborhood the thing. Oh, so you say you got MVP, so woohoo. But yeah. And one essential thing I want to make is his character arc is bad. I'm gonna just flat out say it, guys. It's not great. they really like underdeserve Ben. I am really impressed though with the direction they're going in. I like the fact that they give Ben a a different arc because it's been 4 years and they utilize that opportunity to have Ben like be who he is as a human person and not to worry about his appearance so much, which we'll get to that later. But due to that, it opens more doors and opportunities, which is the romance. He gets to be himself in front of this Rachel Rosman lady who's apparently a teacher at the elementary school. I would have loved to see a scene where before Galactus, we get more context and like seeing being him being himself around the children a little more, just showing how much of a people person he is to justify his reason for stopping Galactus than just being an uncle, quote quote. So in the end, it's like why did they not utilize those scenes they had in the first place for first steps? The director says it wasn't about the runtime and you cut those for a reason, but what else could possibly be that reason? There's a dating show scene where Ben is on the dating show trying to find someone. I think I personally, like, you guys can have your opinions. That is totally okay. We can talk in the comments section. I'll be interested in what you guys have to say. But honestly, they shouldn't have cut that out in the first place. Like, I think every single character gets the amount of required screen time they need. I've watched other reviews on YouTube, and they all mostly say the same thing. Ben Grimm is underdeserved, and he got very much like almost no screen time. He feels like a background character. I even said in the Keys of the Cooler episode that he feels one dimensional because he's just friendly and supportive and he's an uncle. That's all I get. That's all I ever get from this movie. And if I did not know Ben Grimm in the first place, I could honestly say he's not that special. Like, I honestly enjoyed Ben on screen every single time. Like, it made me smile and I was supportive for him. But that's because I know his character. That's because I know why the thing he does. I know why he didn't meet up with that Rachel girl in the Rachel girl in the first place in the second scene where he feels distant. But that's because I know that. For newcomers, they're gonna have no idea why he's like that. It's like, oh, isn't he supposed to be happy with his new form? He doesn't seem to be struggling much. Oh, what's the problem? And that's kind of the problem with all this is that Ben is clearly not showing enough screen time of who he is as a character at all. They should have kept that dating scene because it shows that Ben wants to get connected to the people. Reed Richards is not going to go on a dating show. Johnny Storm has never gone on a dating show, even though he's clearly a guy who wants to get a girl. And I think it's very important that essentially to show that Ben is the one on that dating show, not Johnny. He wants to connect to the people, he wants to get to know them better, and he wants to protect the planet. Like, he cares about the people more than Franklin. Honestly, that is the truth. And they don't show that to the point where it feels like he gets a one-sided character. They don't they need to show and not tell. And in the montage, we only ever get a scene of him putting a villain away, as I recall, and him tugging a boat. They just cut out that dog scene until the credits, which I kind of never really understood. There's so many Ben scenes that are needed to show his character and utilize who he is. And yet they cut it all out. I think you guys get the point, but like I'm just gonna flat out say the main point. Ben Grimm is so underutilized in this film, and for establishing a character arc, they did a very terrible job. Whoever did the editing, you need to be fired. It was terrible. Like you like this scene right here of making a Ben Grimm convention using Luna Snow is obviously more interesting than Ben Grimm like leaving the TV feeling insecure in front of a television. So what I'm trying to say is they did a terrible job at trying to emphasize a romance, not just of Ben Grimm, but let's imagine this is Johnny trying to flirt with a woman. I think it would have been terrible. But also in context is that Ben is someone who's not like into women like nuts. If he's trying to find a woman, he's loyal to them. He's not a daredevil trying to find a lady just for the sake of it because it's kind of like horny, quote quote. I don't know. But what I'm trying to say here is that like Rachel Rosman was very underutilized. I think she had some scenes that are obviously supposed to be there, but they just the time gaps and like everything seems so cut off to the point where you can tell that like she didn't get the screen time she needed to flesh out as Ben Grimm's love interest. And I this is an original character. This isn't Alicia Masters we're talking about, where I'm familiar with why she likes Ben in the first place. So they need to really clearly define this character, but they do it so terribly because she only has what, three scenes where she doesn't do much besides light flirting and asking him to, you know, be with the kids. Like even just a simple scene of them having a dinner date at the table would have been great because you get to see these two characters interact and you can see why she's such an essential character to Ben's arc. But they underutilize her so much to the point where she's just a normal woman who is just interested in the thing being a celebrity. Guys, we don't know if she's a gold digger for crying out loud. I don't know much about her. We don't know much about her. For all we know, she could dump Ben in Doomsday and Alicia Masters would take over instead because there's a 4 year time gap, but she's so poorly underutilized and we don't know who she is. Like, I'm just not too invested. Like, I'm more invested seeing Ben being himself and like trying to get a girl, like being the best guy he can truly be and trying to up himself. That was more interesting, but he doesn't do that too much. And in the last I think the first scene was very well done where he introduces himself and talks about Yancey Street and he does a pretty good job of like being kind and friendly around a girl like a man should be. And then you have the second scene where it kind of made no sense to me. Like in the movie theater, I was pointing at the screen being like, "Dude, why don't do that?" But I kind of realized that this isn't because I wasn't cheering for him, but because it kind of made no sense in the first place. Because he's not really attached to this woman. Sure, he may like her, but in is in Ben's eyes, we barely know anything about her. Like, for all we know, she's just messing with him. We just don't know much. And I think they should have moved that scene when Ben was going to go out on a date with her, but because he's so insecure and he feels like he's not worth it for her, that he leaves. There is a consequence of him ditching out on their date and possibly losing a love interest. But because he never set anything up in the first place with that woman, there is no consequence. He's walking away with no consequence. Like if he doesn't want to talk to her, he doesn't want to talk to her. But in the end, he went to the synagogue. I don't really like his beard, though. It doesn't really show off his expressions. Where he went off to the synagogue, and I didn't hear much of it because it was a little low volume, or like I think they were mumbling. But basically, he said he came to the synagogue to see her, which is nice and cute. But where does it lead for future MCU? We don't know where he's saying he has feelings for her. Like, sure, he likes her, but we don't know if it's in a romantic way or if this romance is going to blossom at all and then eventually it's just thrown away. Like, we don't get any information regarding that. And I think Ben's arc was poorly done. Like, he is the like I'm not saying he's the worst character, but like for the worst character like utilized, he was the worst one. Like you just don't get enough information about Ben to know who he is as a three-dimensional person. He felt very one-dimensional, and a portion of the time the events just kind of made no sense to me. Like the first one, good execution of Ben flirting with a girl. I was excited to see where it would go from there. But then they don't do anything with that, and when the second scene, he walks away when there's no consequence about it. And then in the third scene, he says he wants to see her, but it doesn't set up anything further for the MCU or the relationship. For all we know, we have to wait 5 years until we finally get an answer in a Fantastic Four sequel movie. And with the 4 year time gap, so much can happen in 4 years. For all we know, they're married, and yet it's like, well, how did they get there? That's like what? It's so fast, and in a way, we just have no idea what happened between them. And you can't get invested in a character arc when it just zooms all over the place, and you need to have us care for the character and cheer for him as he gets the girl, which is leads to Superman. I thought Fantastic Four First Steps was better than Superman, but the problem with First Steps is, like I just said, the romance doesn't have enough context, and it's so poorly utilized to the point where I'm not very much cheering for Ben after the first scene. And I thought Clark and Lois's dynamic was really good in Superman. They have clashing ideas. My favorite scene in that movie is when Clark and Lois clash. Like, it's like a real relationship. You're not going to agree on everything, but it's obvious that cares for Clark sometimes, to the point where she tries to save him. And that says a lot, and she gets a lot of screen time to absolutely show that, like, she will do her best to save her love interest. It shows how far she's willing to go to save the one man she loves, even if he is naive. And I just think that romance was more well blossomed than for First Steps. First Steps romance with Ben felt forced. It it made no sense to me half of the time, and there was no consequence of leaving out on her in that second scene. In Superman, if Clark just walked out, it would have given him a bad impression of him as a boyfriend to Lois. Like, there would be more consequence in those future scenes. And there was for some, but in the end, because of the conflict, they get together. But in First Steps, it's not there's not enough space or screen time to utilize that Ben really cares for. I can tell that Clark really cares for Lois and Lois really cares for Clark, but in First Steps, I have no idea where it is going. We don't get enough context, and the scenes are just too short. So in the end, Ben Grimm, like, he needs a whole lot more screen time in Doomsday. I need to know more about his personal life, and I need to see more scenes where he cares about the people. How have Thunderbolts and Ben Grimm going out on Yancey Street eating cheesecake, and that would be enough. Like, you get the characters learn more about the world, but we also get to see how in those 4 years that Ben is still connected to the people, and we could get little hints about what's been happening between Rachel and Ben. But it's clearly obvious that the editing was just atrocious for this movie. Like, I think family wise, they did a great job, and I love his banter with Johnny. But that's just like, I need more Ben on his own. I need to see what he contributes to the world and simply who he is as a human being. And yeah, just Ben was just so poorly utilized. Anyway, I don't want to drag out this video longer than it's already is. Share your thoughts down in the comment section if you agree with me that Ben was very poorly utilized. And I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts. Have a great day. Bye.